Hey, boys and girls, weather report for Friday, May 28th, 2021.
Hiya.
Hey, we have an esteemed panel today with Jefferson, Tanya, and Scott.
Hello.
Anyway, I'm 25,710 days old today. I ain't getting any fucking younger.
How do you even do that? Like, how do you know how many days you've been alive?
I keep track every day, and I just update the counter by one.
I mean, fair enough, I guess.
That way I only have to add one, because adding one is really easy.
Okay,
Well,
so
by doing that every day is your birthday.
Yeah, I hate that. I hate it when it gets to 9 because I have to carry the one, you know? That's
okay,
more
so
work.
how long have I been alive? I was born in 1984.
Okay, there's a days between date calendar. Just mute yourself and go run it. But be sure to hit the add one day, because, you know, that sort of like affects the count. And I'm pretty fucking sure you aren't even well, God. You know, people don't notice when they're 20,000 days old, or 15,000 or 10,000 or 6,666 days. That's a big fucking day, you know, or 666 days for your kids. You know, if you have infants, celebrate their fucking birthday, man.
You know, hold on a sec. Somebody, there's an echo.
Which echo? We don't have one. You do. Sounds like a personal problem. Anyway, this is kind of a what the fuck day.
Yeah.
What the fuck ever. It's Friday.
You guys are insane.
Yep, we be crazy back in here. Wokeism hates veterans. Oh my God! In his image, just did a video called "Wokeism Hates Veterans," and yeah. And yes, a couple days ago, okay, in his image is, we call him Dorkoff. He's Emery Moyna. He's always on Cell's channel. And he has a channel called In His Image, in which he has, he did a thing on, there was a paper apparently that some science magazine did, Nature, I think, or something like that, where they were calling out possible racism in their ranks, that they weren't approving, you know, papers, you know, only from white people, right? And so Emery Moyna starts talking about this shit about like, you know, that's racist against white people. And he was talking about, and then he actually said, and I would have to clip it, or you'd have to go watch it, but he actually said, you know, what's going to happen is the quality of the papers is going to start going down. And I'm like, what? You know, if they allow people that aren't white like you, Emery, the quality of the papers is going to start going down. I don't think that's what he meant to say. Now, what he was talking about is that they're going to go out and they're going to basically scrape the bottoms looking for paper from people, you know, of diverse papers, and somehow that's going to bring the quality of the journal down. And I'm like, but what he ended up saying is that if we don't just have all white people writing papers, the quality of the journal is going to go down. So that's the kind of fucking bullshit this guy is.
God. That's a great way to step in it.
Oh boy, he stepped in it about 15 fucking times. You know, and he was trying to be so, you know, like race doesn't exist and all that stuff, but over and over again he made racial fucking comments. The thing about, you know, and Atheist Jr. did this racism thing on Kent Hovind, where Kent Hovind is trying not to be a racist, but when an actual Southern dyed-in-the-wool racist tries not to be a racist, they say the most racist fucking things,
Yeah.
and they don't even know they're doing it. You know, they don't even know they're doing it. It's like they can't not be racist because it's like built into their fucking fabric. You know, it's like
my favorite thing is when they walk, like stepping on a rake, they walk right into the "I've got friends that are black" or Mexican. Like that has been a stereotype for decades now. That's been a punchline. Yeah. Everyone should be aware that do not, and they go and step on that rake, and you just watch them.
Wait,
okay, stop.
Okay. Look, you're gonna have to explain. You're gonna have to explain that to me, because if somebody has friends that are black or Asian or whatever the fuck, how does that prove that they're racist?
No. The idea is it's a defense that's used by people. Like, you can't call me racist because I have at least one black friend.
Well,
right?
okay,
that's considered kind of a cliched way of trying to dodge accusations of racism.
Right, but I'm asking why. Like, why is that not seen as a good, not excuse, as a good defense, as a good, like, you know what I mean? Because in my mind, just because you have associates or friends who are a different skin color than you doesn't mean that you aren't racist in some way, shape, or form, right? Like, you could say, like, well, yeah, he and I are friends, but it's like, but I better get that job before he does. You know, that you end up finding out that's their attitude later. Look, I need to.
Well, no, midnight. Okay, I haven't murdered any hookers and bagged them this year. You know, I mean, if I have to say that out loud.
Okay, hold on. Hold on. Is there not a difference between being prejudiced and being racist?
Well, I think prejudice, is just a more general term, right? Because you can be prejudiced in a lot of different ways. But if you're talking about race, racism or racists, you're really kind of talking about someone who is bigoted because of perceived racial differences, skin color, whatever.
Right, but then in that case, can't somebody be racist against their own race?
You could be prejudiced against your own culture, yeah. And I think it's pretty obvious you can be racist against your own race because we have Jesus as Lord.
Well, they have a thing called internalized racism, where you hate yourself, you hate your race, you're ashamed of it.
Well, hold on. If
I'm telling you.
Yeah, no, I mean, it actually, I mean, that's correct. Well, a lot of the stuff that Jesus as Lord will put on black people, like when he does entire streams dedicated to a disproportionately high crime rate amongst black people, and that's being covered up by the mainstream media, that's a pretty good example of someone who has some internalized racism going on.
Okay, so here's his.
These are arguments. Whatever. Moving on.
Here's wokeism hates veterans. He posted that 6 minutes ago. I'm sure that's wonderful. Licensed chimp, human ancestry. He's trying to do science. This guy, God, he's supposed to be getting his master's in biology, and I'm pretty sure that he has trouble in class. I don't know. That's the way he talks, because he doesn't seem to know shit about evolution at all. CRT, what is CRT? This is the paper where he did all the racist comments. CRT. What is it?
Oh, I said cathode ray tube. I'm just being stupid.
Okay.
I thought it would be funny, but obviously not. So I'm just going to click on mute and say goodbye for a while.
It's okay. It's funny in retrospect, Scott. So CRT.
Yeah, maybe somebody someday will just replay this and think, "Oh, it was funny after all." Not.
Have these youngsters heard about cathode ray tubes? Do they even know what the fuck that means?
I don't know. Jefferson, do you know what a cathode ray tube is?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Leo Phileas, for clearing that up, by the way.
Yeah, we all used to gather. Critical race theory. We all used to gather together and watch our cathode ray tubes in the living room and get our fucking brains drilled by whatever rays were shooting out of those fuckers.
It reminds me of there was a clip from The Simpsons where it shows like Homer as a child. He's just sitting in front of the TV, and at one point, it's just a quick montage. He stands up and walks away. His shadow is burned into the wall behind him. That's a TV.
Yeah, that's my kids are worried about me because I always have like like 50 square feet of monitors surrounding me. And every now and then they swear they can see an x-ray of my brain behind it. They're concerned. I got a lot of monitor. Anyway, critical race theory. I don't know what the fuck that means. I don't know.
No one does.
Yeah. Anyway, so this guy
I can actually give you guys a quick one if you want to, like one in perspective, because it didn't used to be called. It came out of law schools in the late '80s, kind of early '90s. It was called critical legal theory or just critical theory. Okay. It was an approach in some law schools to approach legal studies and legal theories. So, say you were looking at some kind of statute on the books. When it came to things like, it wasn't usually tort, but oftentimes it was like criminal justice kind of measures. There's an assumption that what you'll have is a system where you'll have bad actors, kind of bad apples that are the exception to the rule, and they do these things, and it leads to these kinds of prejudicial actions or crimes that have these kinds of like prejudicial components to them. And the idea was to take an approach called critical theory or critical legal theory, which was to maybe instead of assuming that the law was just in the first place and anything bad that happens as a consequence is some kind of outlier, to maybe take a look and question whether or not the law in and of itself is maybe prejudiced from the jump. And so that's kind of how it started, at least in law schools. And then it started to kind of convert into, it's actually got at least kind of 2 or 3 different dimensions at this point. So a lot of times when you hear people, especially like kind of right wingers, talk about critical race theory, it's like that it popped up out of nowhere and it arrived fully formed as this kind of way of accusing all white people of being just basically helplessly racist, and there's nothing they can do about it. Well, that's not what critical race theory started as.
One of the biggest issues is the anti-Semitism that we see with people rejecting not just critical race theory but broadly critical theory, because it started. Number one, it's a Marxian socioeconomic analysis, so that is in and of itself going to piss off right wingers because none of them know anything about Karl Marx or what he wrote. But it came from the Frankfurt School in Germany, and so there's a lot of the JQ, if you know what that term means, the Jewish question, the anti-Semitism with people who critique critical theory and critical race theory. A lot of it is just rooted in a complete misunderstanding of what these are, or just straightforward anti-Semitism.
And maybe that might apply for some. I mean, for some of the right wingers, but I kind of get the feeling that for a lot of the right wingers, especially if it's like a louder with Crowder kind of guy or audience member, it's enough for them to say, oh, CRT equals cultural Marxism.
But see, that's part of that anti-Semitism. This cultural Marxism thing plays back into the which Steven Crowder is explicitly an anti-Semite anyway. So, as are a majority of his followers.
I would agree that he's at least implicitly. I don't know if I myself have never seen an example of it being explicit, but yeah, I agree that it definitely implicitly, he's definitely in there.
Oh yeah, just sure like Ben Shapiro is too. Everybody's like, oh, but Ben Shapiro's got Semitic root. That doesn't matter at all.
I'm pretty sure they're going to be talking about CRT in this respect to education, right? Is that what the video's about?
Yeah. They're just mad that critical race theory is being utilized as a method of analyzing our socioeconomic structures and the power that's in them, and how race is played into this. Because they don't want to acknowledge that white people have just been favored in our society.
And the weird thing about this too is that the way that these guys talk about these kinds of ideas, these guys on one hand will be very much like, no, you need to protect speech in all of its forms, and yet theories like this are treated as if they have the power of voodoo. Like allowing people to be exposed to this will bamboozle them, and their poor brains are just not going to be able to get around this. It's like, okay, but you can come up and spout a bunch of nationalistic, jingoistic bullshit and act like that's somehow privileged, and act like it's protected speech. What they're mostly arguing for is kind of a chauvinistic speech code, a privileged speech code. Their opinions are right because they represent, God, the nation, whatever, and yours automatically must be wrong from the jump because they're critical of it.
Yep.
And then we'll try to poison the well by alluding to either nefarious or nasty origin things, like it's coming from a culture of cultures of color, people of color, or the Jews, elitists, globalists, that kind of shit.
Or the one I love is that critical race theory is just a way to make black people superior to white people in our society. That's one that I've heard going around the past few days, and I'm just like, what?
And I think that for most people, if they're like Fox News fans or something, or they're watching InfoWars, when they hear critical race theory, they see it, I think, as this attempt
white oppression.
Culturally. Yep, it's an attempt to
white oppression.
Flip the table, and whites are we're going into the cable cars, we're being sent off to camps, and the blacks are going to run everything. Like, that's not how this works. That's not what
this guy actually says as much in some of his videos, that either because they're Christians or whatever, they're going off in the trains or going to the camps. I mean, he is absolutely certain that we're going to start putting the likes of him in camps.
A YouTuber named Daniel Isbitsky, I call him Little Bits.
Little Bits.
I know that name.
He's always on. At least he used to be. He always used to be on Praise I Am stuff. And I saw him. I think he popped into one of Jesus' Lord's channel, and he was doing something. It wasn't on critical race theory. It was something like that. And I asked him a question during the live chat, and he basically wrote it out like they're coming for us, white people. And I'm like, I hope for your sake that somebody's coming for you, because I think you need to be institutionalized. But
right.
That's a different issue.
It's always that faux white fear, so to speak. These white people are afraid that the tables are going to be turned on them. And I always ask, wait, what do you mean when you say the tables will be turned? Are you acknowledging that white people are privileged in our society? And then it's, and I'm like, yeah, I just broke you, didn't I?
Yeah, that is my favorite part, because it's like, no, there's no such thing as racism, but I think they're coming out to get us because they think it's our turn. Like, wait, our turn? You realize what you just did?
You could see the smoke just emanating from the top of their head.
The thing is, it never occurs to me that somebody's going to come and get them and put them in some sort of a vehicle and haul them off until they start talking about that, right? And then I'm thinking, yeah, in your case, perhaps. I mean, it's not going to be a train; it's going to be an ambulance, and it's and it's not going to be a bunch of soldiers. It's going to be a bunch of fucking paramedics. But
it's gonna be social workers looking at you sideways like, yeah, that's nice. Jewish space lasers. Okay, don't bump your head. No, not any. Yeah, you can't afford any more bumps to the head. Yeah. But the thing too is that if a lot of these people tend to be on the right wing politically, they also tend to be, at least if they're not evangelical Christians, they tend to kind of like favor the view. And it's like, as evangelical Christians, I would think that you'd welcome the opportunity to be persecuted on this grand a scale. Like, because depending on the church you go to, it's usually like once or twice a year, you'll get one sermon about how Christians are, it's just going to happen. Christians are persecuted, Rome fed us to lions, and they're just like, oh, that's right. But whatever we have to do for our Lord and Savior. So it's like, so don't, my issue to paranoid evangelicals out there is like, you should welcome the jackbooted thugs you think are coming to round you up. It's a sign that you're in the right.
With what Speed said, it won't be brown. It won't be brown coats coming to get them. It'll be white coats, apparently.
White lab coats with stethoscopes.
Yep. The doctors are coming to take us away.
Yes, persecution, right?
They're prosecuted. One I've heard is somebody said, yeah, Christians are being prosecuted. And I'm just like, wait, what?
Like,
what did you just say?
No, but some of you, I think, might need to be quarantined.
Yeah.
They should do a pew poll in basically institutions or psychiatric hospitals or psychiatric wings and ask how many of the residents think they have been persecuted. And I'm guessing it's going to be about 80%.
When I worked at a hospital as a security guard in Little Rock years and years and years and years ago, I sat next to a guy. He was like some sort of charismatic preacher, and I was reading the Sunday paper. And every Sunday when we had a shift together, we'd be looking through all the pictures of all the people who had been arrested over the weekend. And he'd go, oh, yeah, he's a preacher. That guy pastors down in Pine Bluff. And half of them were pastors arrested over the weekend. So I don't know what the deal is there.
Anyway,
that's what's called the persecution complex, where somebody does something wrong and they're rightfully convicted for it, or right. I don't want to use the word persecuted, but they're convicted or what have you properly for what they did, but somebody will hyper focus on one aspect of this person and then utilize the fact that they possess, whether they're a preacher or whether they're black or something like that, and use that to try to argue that those people are being targeted when that's really not what's going on.
I put some stuff in the on this in the description, including the paper that Emery or Dorkoff, I should call him Dorkoff, that Dorkoff went after. So I haven't read the paper, and who knows what.
This tackling systemic racism requires a system of science to change from nature.
Yeah,
dude. This is Emery doesn't know anything, because I can't tell you how many physicists and mathematicians I follow that have straight up said, like, look, the racism that exists in academia, especially in the STEM fields, and the sexism is still pretty fucking high. It's astounding how high it is.
But the point is, if you listen to this video, it's just watching a person who has racism built into his fucking bloodstream, trying to be half woke, or what are they? I have no idea what his fucking thing is, but it's really cringy to listen to. So all of his stuff is pretty cringy. He is a piece of work.
You talk about this guy on screen, right?
Yeah, Emery.
Yeah. This is Dorkoff himself.
There was that time he went off on some Fox News internet posting or whatever about how people in the Navy are going to have to pledge allegiance to supporting LGBTQ and trans rights and things like that.
Yeah.
And then I looked up what he was talking about, this little pledge, and it was for a task force that was in the Navy that was investigating how to be more supportive towards the LGBTQ community in the Navy. It was nothing like he said it was. And that's the kind of reading comprehension you get with both him and his friend.
He was parroting a Fox News talking point. Come on now.
Well, the thing too, I love it when they get up in arms about that. It's like, look, question what's happening here. Like, if you think about it, pledging allegiance to the actual flag of the United States is kind of fucked up already.
Yeah, why are we pledging allegiance to a fucking piece of cloth with a bunch of fancy colors on it?
It's weird performative patriotism.
It's nationalism.
It's just nationalism. The idea, can you imagine if they were pledging allegiance to a rainbow flag dedicated to the LGBTQ community? I'm like, how is that any different than pledging allegiance to a nation's flag for? And the language is like, I pledge allegiance to the flag. Like,
your allegiance literally is being pledged to the flag, not your fellow countrymen and women.
Well, and the nation for which it stands, but
the flag.
But to the nation. But it's like, okay, if you get into the fact that you're engaging in this kind of nationalism, it's like there's no problem with having a bunch of kids who don't know any better pledge allegiance, perform this kind of nationalistic routine for a country that there's lots of different things. As they grow older, they're going to find things that they can question about the United States that that it currently engages in, and things it has in its past. But no, what we need to really freak out about is like, they're just going to swap that flag out for the LGBTQ one. I'm like, grow the fuck up.
Pledge allegiance to the gay.
Yeah.
They should interleave those clips of the little kids pledging allegiance to the flag with shit from North Korea. Because it's just right on.
Yeah.
And we had to do it like every day when I was a little kid. Like every day we had to do that shit. It's just like
my school does it every day. Every public school you're going to run to in America that's not in an overly liberal part of America. Yeah, every single day, Pledge of Allegiance right before the morning announcements. That's
oh my god.
They're still doing that in some regions.
In most regions, every school I've ever subbed at or taught at has had that.
Holy shit.
I mean, we didn't do it in high school. I don't know if they do it at that level, but I know in Iowa, I'm pretty sure in most elementary schools they do. Do they? I actually don't know.
If your school didn't do it, I would assume it's because your area is liberal enough that enough.
No, I live in rural Iowa. No.
Well,
no.
Then that you have the exception to the rule, I believe.
That thing about burning a flag back in like the 60s and stuff, tons of people got arrested for it, and it was like illegal in some places. And I thought, and back then, I was a fucking long-haired hippie who oddly enough loved nuclear weapons. But anyway, that's an aside. So I always thought it was the most patriotic thing you could do in America is to burn the flag. and to show that we are not beholden to any fucking weird governmental ideals. You know, that's primarily.
I tell you, you're just an old burnout hippie.
Burnout hippie, yeah. Yeah, the fucking establishment, man.
Oh, man.
Make love, not war.
Yeah, fuck.
It's the man.
Well, I was like, make love, not war, except in Vietnam, drop a fucking bomb on them and be done with it.
See, I kind of think the same thing about like Israel. It's really bad, but if I had it my way, I can't say it. If Vosh got banned off Twitch for saying it, I don't want this channel to get banned off YouTube.
No, Leo, don't do that to me.
But I was going to repeat the same thing that Vosh said. They got him banned from Twitch. Oh, shit. So if you know what it is that he said, yes, that's why it's probably a good thing I'm not in a position of power, because that's exactly what would happen.
Well, I don't know what he said, but I'm going to look it up now.
I'll put it in the private chat.
Okay, all right.
I was getting curious, Leo. I was going to ask about that. Can I share something real quick?
Sure.
Speaking of, we were talking earlier about one of our frenemies said that scientists are no longer curious. They're not looking for anything because they believe there's no God, and they're trying to shove, our no God belief down everybody's throat. And he thinks that they're not looking for quote unquote God's wonders anymore. But and then something about what did you say, Speed, about fundamentals?
I was watching. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Run that by me again. I
the thing that LPP said about fundamentals.
Oh,
fundamentals what?
Oh, I've got the clip. I can play it.
You should. I don't want to hear this.
He said we're not discovering any fundamentals anymore. Yeah, there's nothing fundamental.
What does that even mean?
There may be a specialized thing that means, but this is Dr. Becky Smedhurst, who's a astrophysicist. She does YouTube and has a nice channel, great channel, updates every Thursday. 6 years worth of data from the Dark Energy Survey has been released today, along with 30 papers describing what they found. Most intriguing result is that dark matter is distributed in the universe a lot smoother than we thought. That means new physics. Now, does that sound like scientists are not looking for whatever's out there? To overturn
it makes no sense when somebody says scientists aren't looking for the fundamentals anymore, when one of the biggest things in physics that we're looking for is a unified field theory, which is very fundamental. Like, what the fuck are you even talking about, dude?
Yeah,
this is how you know these people don't understand science and don't follow it very closely.
Yeah. Well, I 100% agree with that statement, Leo. Every branch of science, the deeper you get, the more questions you run into. Exactly. There's open questions in like volcanology. We still don't exactly know where volcano magma comes from. And I can't think of something more fundamental to the rock cycle than studying the rock cycle. But LPP is interested in actually finding out the answers. He just wants a catchphrase that he can throw all over the internet to make him sound smart.
I got a question actually for the entire panel and for anybody else that's watching too, because I'm wondering if this is identified as a psychological state. But it seems to me that there's kind of, I don't want to just bifurcate it and say that there's only two, but it seems like there's a tendency amongst some of the people, at least the ones that I run into that are theists. They have an attitude about science in general, despite whatever else they throw at it. They resent the idea that you can hold on to an explanation, a scientific explanation, and have it be open for revision. And that, because that causes them confusion and frustration, they reject it. Like they react violently and with rage against the notion that that's something. To me, this seems like it's an example of either them having very poor intelligence, not being able to just kind of like hang on to kind of put a pin in something, or just having some kind of psychological state where for whatever reason they feel they need to react to that thing with either fear, distrust, or disgust.
Yeah, I did want to say really quickly, Atheist Junior, no, we understand very, very well how magnets work. I could try to explain it, but it's probably not going to be much use because it involves a lot of vector calculus.
What you need to do, Leah, you need to explain it to the Insane Clown Posse and see if it sticks.
Well, no, I mean, I get the quote of the song, but there are people that actually think that we really don't understand how magnets work. Yes, we do. Very, 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 very well. We understand how magnets work.
Jefferson, I always chalk that stuff up, those grandiose statements from basically anyone on the internet that isn't to some level of in-depth understanding, as clickbaiting and trying to get views. That's the way I chalk it up to. Like, if Erica talks about science, I accept that what she's saying kind of on the basis of she has the background to it. LPP doesn't, so when he says these grandiose claims, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Right? I can accept James Tour saying something. I can't accept LPP saying something.
Right.
And again, I think it's because he's trying to build a channel. Same
I
thing.
can accept what Dr. Tour is saying, depending on the subject. If he's speaking about origins of life, I'm not listening to a single thing that he's saying. Number one, because he's not an expert in that field, doesn't do any research in that field. And number two, he's got implicit biases that are going to mean that he's likely going to misinterpret the field, whether he's doing it intentionally or not. What's beside the point, but if he's talking about like synthetic organic chemistry, then yeah, I'll probably listen to what he says. If he's talking about origins of life, no.
Yeah, I've kind of missed this. I've seen you guys touch on this guy before, and I didn't know what his profession is, but it sounds like that his specialty is in chemistry.
Yeah. He's a synthetic organic chemist. He's focused, I think, a lot on like nanotechnology in the medical field and stuff like that, if I remember correctly. And he's been going around the internet the last maybe year or so, I think, somewhere around there. Essentially trying to say that abiogenesis, it's not solved, which biologists, biochemists aren't really saying that anyway. Just trying to pretty much downplay what we actually do know and understand about this field, and he's thereby being picked up by all the intelligent design conspiracists like LPP.
Yeah, I call him Knack Knack from Mars Attacks.
Knack Knack.
Yeah. Anyway, Sabine Hossenfelder also talked about this dark matter thing and how we're looking at some new physics that just recently came out. So anyway, I have some clips from James Tour, which now James Tour is he's like a PhD advisor. He's on I think Rice University staff.
Yes.
And he is it Rice?
Yes.
Wait, no, who are we talking about?
James Tour. Anyway, so now he got into this fold. I don't know. He saw Jesus in his bedroom after he was looking at porn or something. I don't know what his backstory is exactly, but that in a thumbnail, that's it. Looking at porn, saw Jesus, came to God. And then he started talking against abiogenesis research. And he kept qualifying it by saying, now, I don't have any opinion about whether or not abio is real or evolution or anything like that. I'm just telling you that in science, they're overplaying their case, right? So that's been his big thing. But then he got this channel, and he's been slowly coming out of the closet as sort of a religious fundamentalist nutcake.
Can I be honest here really quickly? I feel like what James Tour is doing is a subtle, with the way that he talks about abiogenesis and origins of life, it almost seems like a subtle Mott and Bailey, if you know what that is, a Mott and Bailey fallacy, where he presents and defends, at least initially, a rather controversial position that,
Oh, is that what it's called?
Life is intelligently designed, but then when he's pressed on that, he'll retreat back to his Mott that is a not quite as controversial a position, that is a little bit easier to defend. But then when you try to attack him on that, he'll go back out to the Bailey and claim that you haven't refuted that argument. And it's a consistent jumping back and forth, so you can't ever pin your opponent down on anything. It's exactly what T-Jump was doing in his debate with Vosh on the whole super straight thing. It's just a Mott and Bailey.
I never had a name for that before, but that is so common.
Yeah,
that is so Cordova.
Abiogenesis has all these problems. We don't know how life could have arisen, and then you get pressed on that. Oh, well, hey, I'm not saying it was intelligently designed. All I'm saying is that the science isn't really out on this, but you haven't refuted my claims that the origins of life doesn't work. It's been a failure. It's just jumping back and forth. It's just a straightforward Mott and Bailey.
I don't want to sound super like out of the loop. I keep seeing these things pop up because they keep getting recommended to me. What in the hell is super straight?
It's this thing. Super straight is a big troll that came on the internet. Some guy was joking when he originally coined the term because he was pissed that he says, "Look, I have no problem with trans people, but I wouldn't enter into a relationship with a trans individual. It's just not my preference." And he was oh, you're a transphobe. You're a transphobe. The thing is, I've actually said that to trans people, and they're like, that's not a big deal. Like, look, people have preferences, okay? Yeah. You're not transphobic because you don't have a sexual preference for trans people. Anyway, so he said, I'm calling it super straight, and that's now my identity, so you can't call me a transphobe anymore. Sort of like just a facetious joke. But then a bunch of right-wing dipshits on Reddit and 4chan picked it up and literally started using it to essentially troll and downplay and further stigmatize trans people and the legitimacy of their identity.
Social media.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jesus, this is a sick culture.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I want to play this clip, and I don't want to foreskin or Danny skin it or Natty skin it or anything like that. So it's about 3 minutes before you get kind of the gist of it. But James Tour is kind of coming out of the closet. If correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he is. But anyway, I'll try to speed it up a little bit.
Just really quickly before you start, when you say he's coming out of the closet, you mean something more like he's sort of revealing more of the religious biases he has and how he looks at science, where he otherwise might have kept those more hidden.
And in this interview, the first time I've heard him come out against evolution. And he does it mildly, but he does it. And I just think
didn't he sign that one thing that a bunch of what were actual like biologists and chemists and what have signed that said that they do have some problems with modern evolutionary theory? I thought that he had signed. I can't remember what the name of that thing was. Let me Google James Tour. I'll find it.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. Anyway, let me play it. We got to get through this, and we can get on.
Dominance in modern academia, at least in
Can you hear?
Civilization. We've discovered so many different ways to apply those pre-discovered principles into all sorts of new technologies and different things, but we haven't really been discovering new fundamentals. And I honestly wonder how much of that is due to many folks aren't looking for the the other amazing secrets that God has woven into our existence for us to find. And because they're not looking for them, therefore they're not being found. Just as you said, if you don't pray, why would you expect your prayer to be answered?
I'm sorry, I'm foreskinning that. He's basically saying that science isn't doing science anymore,
which
right?
is ridiculous. Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Yeah. Okay.
All he's trying to do is
go ahead.
No, if you want to. Oh, I was going to say all he's trying to do is try to paint this picture that science has reached an impasse. There are now questions. It can't answer them anymore. It's not trying to. Oh, well, then what explains this? Well, it's got to be God. It's got to be God. What else could it be? That's all he's trying to do. Is paint this picture of science failing, and so it's got to be picked up by God. God must have done it.
Okay, watch for this theme and everything they say. The subtext is that now that we are doing modern science from 2020 on, we are discovering God in science, and scientists are closing off and they're not looking. They're no longer doing science because we keep discovering God. That's what these fuckers believe. So anyway, let me play.
It does. I mean, fundamentals are hard to find. I mean, true fundamentals. There's a limited number of them. And they're hard to find, but yeah, I mean, I can't disagree that if we sought God all the more and prayed to Him, that we would discover more. And John, it is so much.
I know.
Fun knowing God.
Oh my God.
Knowing His Son.
Okay, so
scientist. Foreskin.
That was really funny. I'm sorry. If people sought God,
we'd do better science.
This is a claim that Christians do not. Because people laugh at this kind of stuff, but this does not get to okay, you make a claim that if you pray to God, you will get better at science. How? Please explain how
explain
that works.
Well, if you pray to God, I don't know. You pray over every experiment. I don't know.
You're gonna get a eureka moment, like, oh, that's how. Yeah.
You want to know something interesting? You know how these guys will always talk about people like Newton and Aristotle and all these great scientists throughout history? Well, they might not necessarily Christian, but they believed in God, you know. The funny thing is they felt that they could discover God through understanding the natural world as it is. They didn't try to, what's the word I'm looking for? Not introspect. When you put your idea into something when it's not really there, what's that called? What's the word for that? Intro something. Your intro something, whatever the fuck that word is. They didn't do that like all these newfangled intelligent design conspiracists and creationists do. They wanted to know how the natural world worked, bar none. That's it. And so if you want to talk about God motivating you to do science, then stop trying to claim that science has been a failure or that science is failing. Because all the historical scientists that believed in God that you always want to bring up to somehow make this connection between science and God, they would have laughed at you for the way that you're going about it. Absolutely laughed at you.
Something I'm wondering about what about that phrasing of that sentence is like God is holding back information until the right scientist prays the correct way.
Right.
Like God has the cure for cancer in his pocket, but until that dude in Iowa,
we got to start praying.
Correctly, then I won't give him the cure to cancer. I mean, is that what we're trying to say here?
Yeah.
Or it's.
I think the technical term you're looking for is introsplooge. I don't know.
It seems to me like if you believe that that's the kind of being that you're talking about, then let's say that if we turn to prayer and that God will get us better at science and that science leads us to save lives, God is in a sense kind of holding life-saving knowledge
Exactly,
for ransom.
right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
for attention purposes. So it's like your God at this point is really
kind of a
fucking
dick.
weird. Yeah, he's
I'm
fucking
kind of a
weird
dick.
now. Yeah. If he's got that knowledge and he's got those abilities, shouldn't he share?
Yeah, and another thing I bring up in this conversation to people is the classic of show me where Revelation, show me where the Bible has taught us something new. And everything they bring up is always a discovery made in modern science that they then somehow point to in the Bible, like the fountains of the deep. The Bible had talked about the fountains of the deep and the vents on the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Really? Because no one said that until we found them, and then suddenly the Bible knew this. Fantastic.
It's just post hoc justification.
All of it. You know, they say the Bible taught people to wash their hands. No, the Bible said to dip your hands in water and then continue dipping your hands in the same still water that's covered in blood. That's not washing your hands. You know?
Yeah, but I thought the Bible, when it talks about like washing your hands and stuff, wasn't about like getting rid of germs. It was about washing away your iniquities, like the sin.
Well, no, and ceremonial purposes in the Old Testament, they dip their hands in water in between doing like ritual sacrifices.
Yes,
and that's been construed to be hand washing and therefore germ theory in the Bible.
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, ducking your hands in water doesn't kill germs.
Yeah, it's like saying that there's a scene in that movie, was it 13th Warrior? With these, it's like the first thing in the morning, it's a bunch of these Vikings, you know, they're in camp, and they have this one bowl.
Movie, by the way. Yeah.
I do enjoy that movie. They pass this bowl of water around that they all wash their faces with, and guys are like spitting in it and blowing their nose in it, you know, and then but it goes on to the next guy, and they're, you know, rubbing that water back into their beards. It's like, ugh, gross. Yeah, it's like, yeah, if that's the kind of ablution that you're talking about from the Bible, that's I don't think they had a handle on germ theory. Just saying.
Well, they didn't know what germs were. They thought it was all demons. So, I mean,
yeah, right. Yeah, water cured the demons. Your loogies and your germs.
How could the Bible have told us about germ theory when they thought diseases were caused by fucking demons? Like, come on now, really?
And for whatever reason, these demons, which could get inside you, were terrified of water, even though you are mostly water.
Yeah, makes no sense.
Okay, let's try to proceed.
Young people thinking about being a scientist, I tell you, if you love the Lord, it is so rewarding to be a scientist, to uncover things that people have never seen before. We do it all the time in my lab. People have never seen this before, and you uncover this, and you just say, glory to God.
It's
Lord,
great, even if you don't believe in God.
This to me. Thank you, Lord. It's just, I love what I do. I just love it.
I can imagine. It's kind of funny. I was talking with my family about this a couple years ago. Of you know, if I had known what I know now when I was going to college, I probably would have gone into some type of biotech, just because of the sheer fascinating, the amazing. What I find extraordinarily fascinating is one of the reasons I've been able to find interesting stuff about the latest and greatest discoveries is whenever I hear about a new technology that humans have devised, I'm like, I bet there's a pre-existing function extraordinarily similar to that in a biological system. I'll go and Google it, and lo and behold, we will have just discovered, oh wait, turns out that insert X also exists.
Okay, I'm sorry, can you pause this right here? This is the dumbest fucking point anybody could try to make. That's like saying, look,
inserting X.
It's like trying to say, look, humans developed nuclear power plants. I bet I could find something like that in reality. Oh, look, there's a star. Like, really? What the fuck do you think that proves? That we can do the same things that nature's been doing for billions of years before we were here? Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I'm gonna be Peter's soundboard today. Hallelujah, hallelujah. He plays John's soundboard. That's about what I'm ready to sing right now with these guys. Right?
Okay. This is probably. I'm not sure if this is a boring part or not. I might fast forward here to 22, but let's see.
Exponentially more advanced, but the same concept, right? We've just kind of cracked the door into this new. You were talking about.
You know what fucking worries me about James' tour? Sometimes I think his screen is frozen.
Yes.
He never actually fucking moves. And then he puts a smile on his face. And I'm pretty sure it's one of those smiles that they try to teach you in acting school,
Maybe this is all a deep fake.
It could be. Maybe
it's like a slide projection, and every once in a while they just throw down a slide that
Paula Gia's fucking little comic icon has more facial expressions than this guy.
Yeah. I mean, would we really put it past good old Quantum John here to do a deep fake of James' tour to fake an interview he had with him? I mean, I can't say I would.
Yeah.
I can't say I would. It's just I don't think he understands technology well enough to actually pull that off.
Okay, we got something coming up in 17 seconds. We can bear it.
Ooh. Earlier you mentioned like virtual photons for information transfer and things of that nature. And I'm just like, I read a paper on that recently. I'm just like,
I read a paper.
Night. This is insane when you think about it from a technological perspective. But before we get too distracted on that side of things, so let's circle us back around to the accusations that have been made by a variety of folks, specifically also the person that did the video that kind of catalyzed a lot of this. That you hold, because of your faith, you hold a agenda. So I guess I would have to ask you, do you have an agenda, and if so, what would it be in relation to the abiogenesis controversy, shall we say?
Right. So, I find it frustrating when people will hear scientists speak and it draws them away from faith in Jesus Christ because of inaccuracies that are put forth by the scientists.
What? Why does he keep going back to Jesus?
To suggest that there's a primordial soup, that some lightning strikes, and it makes perfectly good sense that molecules formed, those formed a cell, and we got life from that. And so life is figured out, and to somehow suggest that then lessens God, and to see people become weak in their faith or deny their faith about these things.
Okay. So he's saying that basically this whole diatribe about if you listen to modern science, it will weaken your faith in God. That only comes from fundamentalists.
Well, I think that's more a reflection of how James Tour feels science, looks at science with respect to his religion, because that statement, I don't think most Christians or most scientists on the world would agree with that, considering that most scientists on the world probably have some sort of faith. It seems when he says, oh, well, science will lead you away from faith, I feel like that's honestly more of a slight revelation about how James Tour feels about the situation that he's then projecting broadly onto society, which I just don't think is true.
There's something
Go ahead.
Sorry. It just seems like there's something kind of contradictory about this idea that he points out abiogenesis, and it starts kind of creeping into a tone of like an argument from incredulity, like this, this idea that life comes from non-life. But then he goes on to make the assertion that this doesn't do anything to, somehow minimize God. Okay, it actually does. Like the kinds of Christians that will come around and be like, well, so what if God used some form of abiogenesis to create life? Doesn't mean that there's not a God. Well, okay, those are the ones that don't have a problem recognizing evolution as a fact, but they have a real hard time dealing with their Christian brothers and sisters who insist on theological dogma like the Imago Dei. The Imago Dei is really hard to sustain if everything comes from one kind of life source, if everything kind of started from a single locus.
What the fuck is that? The what?
The Imago Dei, the idea that we are created in the image of God.
Oh,
It's
okay.
very difficult for Christians to square the idea that now some can and say that, oh well, it's our souls that are in the image of God, our physical bodies aren't. But for the most part, and most of theology and the thing that's easiest for believers to grasp onto is that humans are the way they are because we are in the image of God. If we evolved from something else that calls that kind of theological dogma into question. So when Tour says this kind of thing, like, well, abiogenesis doesn't diminish God. It does in fact diminish God for a lot of believers. He's simplifying something there that he can't really back up.
If you got a good imagination, you could just imagine that God set up the whole plan in the beginning.
No, that's
he
what
knew
I mean.
These humans.
Exactly.
He knew these humans were going to develop, and then two of them, basically, at some point in evolution, there was Adam and Eve. And all of a sudden, basically the light of consciousness was bled into them, right?
Sure, and
magically, right?
there are Christians that will use ideas like that to reconcile their acknowledgement of evolution, at least, because they're probably not going to jump up and just accept any abiogenesis hypothesis, but they'll use that kind of thinking to reconcile the notion of the Imago Dei being something that's more spiritual or more abstract. It's not about the physical human. It's about Adam and Eve were these special humans. They're like the first beings with souls. That's the image of God. But the Imago Dei in most theological disciplines is not that. The human body, after all, even Paul talks about this, your body is resurrected upon Christ's return. It's a bodily resurrection. The physical human body is important to them. And so he's in some shaky ground here.
Yeah, I did want to say really quickly that when a lot of, not necessarily specifically Christians, but religious people who adhere to that ideal, we're created in the image of the divine, it seems that when they say, oh yeah, well, I don't deny evolution, but the whole created in the image of God, that's our souls. These are just post hoc justifications for the fact that their worldview is so ill defined that it could fit with anything, which is why we know it's not a good ideal.
Yeah, they had to retreat back to the idea that, oh, well, by image of God, I mean the fact that people have souls and we know the difference between right or wrong. Like, that's not what it originally was. You changed that on the fly because we have science now that gives us better explanations and better examples. And you had to adjust to that. And it's a weaker claim. And the reason that you can tell that is because the majority of Christians don't buy it either.
Yep.
Okay. I just want to point something out in chat. Jefferson, your brother, is the only person that's ever managed to get Stephanie Trenton to actually start to crack a little bit. I mean, I don't know what's going on over there, but anyway, so Stephanie's our resident Buddhist believer, poet, whatever, who never really gets involved in the chat in any other way other than abstractly. But your brother has actually managed to bring Stephanie out a little bit.
Well, now that you pointed it out, I'm sure that's going to break the spell, right?
It's like, what the fuck?
She's like,
I mean, way to go, Jay. You fucked up our resident Buddhist poet, fucking peaceful, whatever,
peaceful warrior.
Yeah, what the fuck? Jay?
Way to disturb the waters there, Jay.
That's what Jay does. Jay doesn't dip his hands in the waters. He just unzips and pees in them.
Yep. Right. Okay. Getting back to this bullshit here.
That's what makes me take this on, in the sense that, no, let's talk about the truth.
He does have an agenda.
Let's talk about the truth. Scientific advances come. Science has never shaken my faith. But I see the attack that comes forth, particularly upon young students.
Wait, but that's contradictory, though.
Teachers that put forth scientific ideas and somehow use that to belittle faith. You can talk about science, talk about what we know, but say this is a theory. This is a theory.
Oh, I hate that sentence.
Did you see what he did? You see what he did? He actually used the colloquial definition of a theory, and he's supposed to be a fucking scientist?
Yeah, but he doesn't have an agenda. Nope, not at all. Did anybody else notice the contradiction where, like, 2 minutes ago, he said that, science pulls people away from faith and this, that, and the other, and then he just said, yeah, well, science doesn't pull me away from faith. Well, which is it? Does science pull people away from faith, or does it not?
Right.
The old adage goes, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
And they were talking about how science reveals the fabric of God, and now they're saying science pulls you away from faith. Well, only if you follow biology. Okay.
I have a whole lot of facts.
Oh. Hi, Amy.
Hi, how are you?
We're good. Glad you're here. We're just listening to a little James Tour coming out of the closet as an anti-evolutionist. So anyway, because he avoided this prior to getting this YouTube persona. So anyway, also watch his expressions and tell me if this guy is an animated character.
So I have a question for you, Speed.
And it's
Which one? Do you think that the fact that James Tour has been picked up, some of the stuff that he said has been picked up by these creationists and these intelligent design conspiracists, do you think that might be pushing him more to speak about the science from more of a theological perspective than he otherwise was, or do you think it's something else?
Yep, it's that, and the fact that he's got a lot of money from his patents and his businesses, and he's at the point where he doesn't care anymore. So he's coming out, and he's getting involved with Professor Dave had an interesting thing to say about Maddox's channel. So I think he basically called it some little. I'm paraphrasing; these are not Professor Dave's words, but some little shithole apologetics channel that has no impact. That's what he called little people.
That's gotta hurt.
Oh yeah,
especially coming from a channel with 1.5 or 2.5 million subscribers.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway,
shakes people's faith, and so I get concerned about this. I say, okay, let's see what's behind this. How much is behind this? And then when I start exposing this, I mean, people tell me all the time that they watch these videos and it brought them back to the faith that they had back in college that they had lost when they had taken biology.
Just confirmed what I said.
Some biologist is going to talk about primordial soup. Some biologist is going to talk about how cells can assemble. And that's what drew a person away from their faith. Until a few years ago, I had no idea that people were being drawn away from the faith because of that. And so I just want to expose this truth. I want to expose the truth. Because the truth is not really going to upset people.
One question that I want to ask, because I don't often talk to somebody with the kind of science background who's also a believer, but when they talk about science being used to challenge Christianity, are they talking about overtly, or are they talking about Christians just reacting to the implications of a new theory as if it's against God?
It's the latter, exclusively the latter. That's why they attack evolutionary theory. It's not that evolutionary theory is absolutely, neither does abiogenesis. None of these has any fucking thing to do with God or Christianity.
And he seems to have that defense himself.
It's the implications of it, like what Jefferson was saying earlier. The implications of evolutionary theory are that we're not created in the image of a God. The implications of that kind of work against what Christians believe. They're just upset at the implications of science rather than what the science actually just is.
And I want to just add a Homer Simpson here thing. Primordial soup, delicious.
And
I've got
generally what
primordial soup in this bowl.
Amy,
sorry,
no, not yet though.
But generally what happens is we discover, or we as in science discovers a new fact, and then what happens is the religious people generally have to go, does this fact correspond with my religion or not? And that builds two camps, the religious people who accept science and the religious people who don't.
Yeah. And that seems to be what I think is interesting is that he's of a mind where he's sort of already put out that it doesn't necessarily follow that just because if a hypothesis for abiogenesis is actual, that somehow diminishes God. And yet then he goes on and he said it multiple times, these scientists or scientific theories are challenging God. If abiogenesis isn't one that diminishes it, what scientific theories does he think are challenging God?
Okay, here's the thing. There's an elephant in the room that they don't talk about, right? There have been all these polls in the last 10 or 20 years, and the problem is that these kids are coming out of their religious families, and they're entering college because they have to in order to get anywhere in the fucking world, and shortly thereafter they lose their Christianity, and there's poll after poll that's showing this, and they believe that it's the biological sciences that are doing this, and it's not. It's just getting to talk to other human beings, and then you start to realize, Santa doesn't really exist. You know, it's pretty fucking simple. But what this little group of fundamentalists that we deal with, these creationists, are going after is that, oh, it's evolution. It's the evil evolution. It isn't. It's the fact that they go out and talk to other people and they realize that these other people have been living their whole life without believing in Santa.
What I would really like James Torr to do is, if this is the argument he's making, talk with his colleagues that, oh, this God is not dead professor. Because when I went through and did all my graduate work and stuff like that, even my undergraduate work in geology, which is a big issue with Christian faith, no one said to me, hey, God doesn't exist, by the way. We never talked about Noah's flood. You know, and if James Torr wants to present science as ruining Christian lives, give me that God is not dead. Give me that God's not dead professor that gets up there and says, I will fail you if you believe in Jesus. Because I don't think he has one. I think he's just following the trend of that's what's popular to yell and bitch.
Oh, I saw one on that movie, that Christian movie, where that atheist professor.
Yeah, Hercules, yeah.
No, it was another one. The atheist professor, he got run over by a car at the end of it and killed.
That's Kevin.
That's Hercules. Yes, yeah. Hercules did that.
Oh, is that? Oh, Hercules.
Okay. Yeah, he has the deathbed confession. The just before death confession at the end, right. which is a remarkable thing to feature in a movie like that. It's like, okay, that theologically brings up a lot of implications for your faith that you didn't want to deal with. You just wanted to demonize the skeptics.
Can I be honest with you guys for a second? I grew up Catholic. I was always a progressive Christian. Never had problems with any aspect of evolutionary theory. Didn't think that gays, were going to burn forever. None of that stuff. We weren't that kind of religious person. I was a Christian apologist, pretty devout Christian apologist for a while. I wouldn't say it was science that moved me from my faith. It was the questions that I started asking myself that didn't seem to make sense to me. Like things, okay, God created the universe. How would we ever have that positively indicated? Not just that you could always tack that claim on because you can. What actually indicates that is the case? Because there isn't anything. How would God do it? So God is a thing that is not made of any material. It's not in space. He's not in time. How do I differentiate that God from existing in that manner and that same God not existing at all? It was those philosophical, those metaphysical questions that made me realize that, and this is the way that I would say it, that there seems to be a level of absurdity in the idea of something supernatural. Supernatural is just an incoherent concept. You cannot meaningfully differentiate between some X existing and being supernatural and that same X not actually existing at all. You just can't do it.
I think for me, the biggest thing that kind of pulled me away was more or less but I took a different tact. Even when I went to school, it was more like I got into like kind of cross-cultural studies and classic studies and stuff. But for me, it was the theological implications of what what the Christian religion tends to tell people will happen to them spiritually, physically, mentally, and that doesn't happen. I watched lots of churches fail, watched lots of Christians get into divorce, get into addiction while they were still attending church and continued to attend church and did so after they sorted out their problems. And it was like, there was this sort of implicit agreement that this arrangement was going to make you better. And it was like the only thing that I saw that was happening from it, and I saw it later when I started hanging out with people from different cultural backgrounds, is that the benefit was that you had a social group that you could belong to. You had people that held you accountable, that you had people that you could talk to. You also had the downsides of that, because with a church, you had expectations that came from a system of make-believe, and it really was different rules and different expectations that weren't grounded in humanity. They were grounded in a lot of bullshit theology, depending on which kind of denomination you were in. And so it was like, okay, this stuff trumped any of the benefits that were supposed to be coming from a Holy Spirit per se, and that's when the illusion was over for me. I'm like, this isn't the power that's involved in church is not coming from God; it's just coming from other people. It's just
exactly.
Men.
So, what's the name of this video? I can't see through the highlighted.
I know.
Oh, the situation has changed. Yeah, isn't Sabine Hossenfelder more of a MOND person, a modified gravity person, rather than a tangible dark matter? Yeah, I'm not. Modified Newtonian dynamics makes no sense.
Before we actually... Oh, no, go.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, before we start the video, I just want to point out something annoying because I was looking at James Torres' background, and he is one of those guys, as with all of the anti-evolution people, that's like, hey man, I'm not saying I have evidence for ID. I'm not here to prove intelligent design. We're just asking questions.
Yeah.
You know, what's wrong with asking questions?
Yeah,
And
it's
like,
that
yeah, that's
same
cool.
it's that
Well,
same
that was a
style that I mentioned earlier.
That was a point of playing that, Amy, is that he is slowly coming out of the closet as being more fundamentalist and of a science denier than he has in the past. So he's watching. I wasn't going to play Sabine. I just wanted to point out that, and I'm linking this video in the description for anybody that wants to watch it. But it would take us way off topic. So,
before we go back to James' tour, are you guys aware of any science he's done that backs his belief, or is he popular as an argument from authority?
Argument for authority.
I mean, that's all it is. We can sit here and we have pretty much everybody in this room has said, look, I mean, none of us are professionals. And when at the end of the day, when we look at the data and we look at what the professionals are saying, the exhaustively overwhelming majority of them are in favor of things like evolutionary theory and, natural physical mechanisms giving rise to life. But then they'll call that an argument from authority. Oh, we're just relying on the consensus. But then they'll cite somebody like James Tour, who's not even a relevant professional or expert in the field that we're talking about, and act like anything they say is bulletproof fact.
But Leo,
it's just the projection there is fucking insane.
His name is on that agreement, so he's one of the quote unquote good scientists.
Yeah. By the way, the thing that he signed is referred to as a scientific dissent from Darwinism, which Darwinism is not what modern evolutionary theory is. Even nobody's adhered to Darwinism for what 90 years.
Even the name of it is not accurate. That's great.
Yeah. And he continues a trend of what the creationists tend to do is they're like, look, we're never going to find anyone who is studying abiogenesis or evolution who says that it's wrong. So what they do is they go for like slightly adjacent fields. Sometimes it's like physics, sometimes it's chemistry. So and they get these people to say, hey, my name is Dr. So-and-so, and I'm just asking questions, and I come from University of blah, 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 and it's okay to be a creationist. And they do this for like 100 different types of scientists. But if you go down the list and you ask all of these people, do you study evolution? Do you study abiogenesis? Do you study the thing that you are saying is wrong? They'll be like, yeah, about that subject. I'm going to take a sandwich instead and bye.
Yep. Like with my PhD in economics, I have a hard time accepting the notion that we came from a primordial soup struck by lightning. Like, great.
Yeah.
But you can also jog on with that, right? That first part, doesn't matter. Like, okay, you have a hard time wrapping your head around that as a hypothesis. Good for you. Lots of other people do.
We see this all the time on Standing for Truth's channel when he brings biologists on to talk about geology and geologists on to talk about chemistry and astrophysicists on to talk about biblical theology. Like, what the fuck are you doing, dude?
Like a strategy.
AIG has a certain magic for bringing on their geneticists to talk about geology and all that. I mean,
yes,
they're absolutely incredible.
It's insane.
Why the fuck did they do that? I don't know.
Well, it's because they know if they get actual, literal, legitimate professionals in these fields, they'll get their asses handed to them on a silver platter. That's why.
Exactly.
Well, that's why I think it was Jeff or Amy said they got to go to fields that are like tangential to that field, but not actually in that field. Yeah.
How would someone like James Tour, given some of the stuff that he's involved in, how would he deal with criticisms from certain Christians if he's working on things like nanotechnology? Nanotechnology has implications for things like for issues like transhumanism. How does he address those claims? How does he address those issues? Because if these people have a problem with LGBTQ community, wait until transhumanism is more of a thing.
Oh yeah,
you can just decide that I need a venom sac, because it's my Second Amendment right to be able to spit venom at my enemies, in self-defense. Or,
I want to live in your future. I just want to say that.
Okay, Iron Charioteer just posted this that he called Tour the Antichrist for his work in nanotech.
And that's what kind of prompted my question. I was like, yeah, you know what? If he's working in nanotechnology, I mean, nanotechnology and issues regarding like transhumanism and human what are they? Not even just bionics, but just completely, really fundamentally changing the human organism by choice has massive implications, philosophically, ethically, and even culturally. And like this guy's work is part of that, but he's sitting here saying like, yeah, at the end of the day, I think you need to pray more, and that will give you better science. Like, you know what? I'm going to take his advice on that. I'm going to pray to Jesus that he gives me the inspiration to come up with a way to grow myself a tail and claws, because I just think that's going to be cool. Like,
my God, Jay is continuing to crumble Stephanie. Now he's got her smoking like homophobic shit. I don't know.
Apparently, Stephanie Tretton is Jon Snow now. She said, "Where's that?
To know nothing
She
means
said,
you know something."
True, I know that I know nothing. So she must be Jon Snow now.
Jon Snow. Okay.
All right. Who is that quote from? I was the wisest of all because I knew that I knew nothing. Is that from Plato?
I have no idea.
Sounds like
I
a
actually don't.
huge sentence, yeah.
It sounds like who knows? It's one of these old ass Greek or Roman philosopher guys
Who may or may not have been real.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, no, Obi-Wan Kenobi gave us the great only Siths deal in absolutes.
Ooh, I like that a lot better.
Only a Sith deal.
There must be a lot of mathematicians and logicians in the Sith then, because they deal a lot in absolutes.
Well, yeah, but they're the Antichrist too. They're all part of the same, cabal. Jesus,
I like
doubting
fear,
freak.
anger to hate. It's a good.
I guess what I would like to see with James Tour. Sorry about that, Amy, but what I'd like to see with James Tour is LPP to. Maybe he's going to do this at some point. I don't know. I'm going to just talk out my ass here. But, like, if you want to get into the theology conversation on this YouTube bullshit network, there should be more of an open dialogue, right? We talk a lot of stuff about James Tour. I'd like to know how James Tour responds to this. I don't know how to ask him Jefferson Spatchcock's question to see what he would actually say, Because I don't want to talk for him. That's disingenuous.
True. I want to know if James Tour would come on this channel and have a discussion with like just Speed, or with just Demeter, or with just Dr. Dan, or like with just CRISPR, or somebody like that. Because we don't want to overwhelm the guy, But I would be interested if he would. I would, like, especially him and Demeter. Oh man, I'd love to see that discussion.
Jefferson, would you talk to him about
theology stuff? Yeah,
theology. Cool. Yeah. That would be interesting. Theology and science. That'd be a good fucking topic. I doubt he would come on here. The guys would. Little Pee-Pee would poison the well.
They'd poison the well. They'd poison the well so goddamn bad that one drop would kill the whole planet.
I kind of want to make an observation that's a little bit probably too self-aware, but one of the things that I do, like pointing out like Darth Dawkins' arguments, I don't really engage with him, mostly because I can't. He almost always bans me.
Not fucking worth it.
And it's really not worth it, but I like engaging with like like examining and kind of dissecting the discussions that he has. There's a way that, if you see somebody like that, a personality on there that's engaging in something like that, somebody like me can come around, or even like Tom Rabbit, we can kind of like highlight those kinds of things and then discuss them. And we kind of discuss them from a remove, right? We have a kind of comfortable distance. We can talk about it amongst friends. We can talk about points he made, contradictions made, even speculate on his motives and stuff like that. What I find weird is that James Tour, for what his research is pretty, is pretty clear cut. But now that he's kind of taken some heat from this Dr. Dave guy, he's going to these kinds of apologist sites and trying to kind of bolster this kind of, he's like pre-building a defense before he engages with the critic. Mm-hmm. And that I think is a little bit telling, because it's like, it's one thing if you're dealing with the claims that are coming from a guy that doesn't want to engage with you, won't talk to you, actually refuses to talk to you, like a Darth Dawkins type, and you're basically kind of left to like examine conversations that you find out secondhand, and then you can kind of like examine them from a distance. But in this case, like somebody like James Tour can just go to Dr. Dave, have that one-on-one conversation with him, and if he's challenged on some of this stuff, then he could be put. But instead, it seems like the one that we've got that was with Maddox, right? That one that we just watched. Yeah, he's on basically in friendly territory, trying to make an argument, and it's like this. I mean, if he really, I think that like you don't even have to be a philosopher to really understand this, but you're basically getting into a position where you're putting yourself in a position where it becomes too easy to straw man the other side. I notice it about myself if I'm analyzing Darth Dawkins from my comfortable remove from my little YouTube atheist channel and talking amongst my atheist friends and cohorts. It's an easy thing to get into, and I kind of question his motives when he starts to do that. Like, I'm going to go on somebody like Maddox's channel, or maybe Maddox sought him out. Maybe that's it.
I think Maddox sought him out.
Yeah, but I mean, when we look at the underlying, I don't really want to say biases, but beliefs that Tour has, I'm not surprised that he'd go on a channel with somebody like on somebody like Quantum John's channel. The thing is, the only person who's actually been trying to set up a debate between Tour and Dave is Maddox. And I believe Dave has even said, look, I'm okay with having a debate or a discussion with him, but he needs to come to me. I don't need other people to come to me on his behalf. If he's interested in a debate or a discussion, he can get a hold of me. I have no problem with that. We can set it up where we can do it on a third-party channel, and that'll be great. But I think Dave said, I need Dr. Tour to come for me. I don't want other people coming to me on his behalf.
I'm doing it now, Scott.
What are you doing? Getting a hold of Tour? Oh, never mind.
This is all back channel. Okay.
I don't see the point in a debate like that, because like it's like the reason why scientists they only debate or discuss topics in the written format when they have the time to analyze the data and to discuss it in a detailed manner. But when you have a public debate, then it becomes more of an exercise in rhetoric rather than evidence and logical arguments.
Well, sure, but I mean, abiogenesis and this debate on it, while it is primarily scientific, there is a lot of philosophy and theology brought into it. Right. I don't think there's anything wrong with public debates.
I mean, a debate, like an online debate, or even a live debate in front of an audience where you have like only 20 minutes from each side opening, doesn't really do the discussion justice, in my opinion.
But I think
I think they do. I think debates can be great. I think this would just be an option for Dr. Tour and Dr. James to just engage directly with one another.
I don't buy it. I don't think debate is like arguing to. It's not arguing to each other. It's arguing to an audience and try to be as convincing as you possibly can to the audience.
Well, yeah, that's the point of a debate, is to be convincing.
It's not an exercise in finding the truth of the matter.
Well, I think it can be.
That's my problem. That's my.
If I can interrupt you guys
necessarily. Not necessarily.
Well, no, it's not necessarily, but I would argue generally that's what the purpose of debates is.
That's my problem.
Bad debates, obviously, that you're not going to see that.
Can we let Amy talk, please? Can we let Amy talk, please?
No, I just think, as someone made the point earlier, what's going to convince James Tour is not science. There's never going to be a scientific argument that is ever going to win him, because he has a theological position that will not allow him to. And so the funny thing is, what I'm starting to realize is that the creationists are always going to argue science. I think the most effective arguments for atheists are theological arguments.
And I agree with you there, but I kind of have a vested interest in that, because that's the angle I usually take things from. But I think you're right, because even for me, when I was a Christian, I wasn't entirely sold on the idea of young Earth creationism, but I kind of had, maybe this is revealing too much, I kind of wonder if other Christians felt the same way. I understood its importance as a strong position for Christians. And I was sympathetic to it for that point, because it shored up belief. It wasn't the source of that belief. It was, young Earth creationism was a way of kind of shoring up a fundamentalist and purist, a very pure and very simplified version of that belief. It made it easier to kind of hang on to. I think you're right. If you try to challenge the young Earth creationism as a thing, I don't really think there's anything to challenge. There's nothing there. There really isn't anything there. There's just the statements and the claims that you get from the narratives within the books of the Bible versus science. And so the easiest thing that they can do is, and part of this is, I think, just sort of the necessary misanthropy that's involved in Christianity, is to question science because it is of men, and then look to the Bible as a product not of men but of a God. Therefore, its claims are better. That's just a simpler thing for believers to hang on to. If you try to do more internal critiques going after the theology, I agree with you, Amy. I think that's more effective. That raises more doubts.
Yeah.
And like I see, Pavel, I agree with you. I would say you gotta be mixed. I mean, obviously some people might believe for scientific reasons, but I find just from going around on Tangelo, LPP, though some people say that he doesn't believe because that reason. The gentleman who researched the Human Genome Project, Francis Collins, all the reasons they give are just very, very non-scientific. I'm not sure why Kent Hovind believes, but I'd be interested if it was evolution or its lack thereof, or is it because you had an experience and you had a personal revelation with God and now evolution is wrong?
I gotta be honest. Oh no, sorry, finish.
Oh no, that's it.
I really don't think anybody who believes in God, it maybe for like a theist or a deist, this might be true. I'm willing to at least grant that. But for like Christians and Muslims and Hindus and what have you, I don't think science plays at all into their belief. They already believed, and what they utilize, they don't really utilize. What they do is they just twist and contort and misrepresent science to utilize it as a post hoc justification for their preconceived theological beliefs. But it's the theological reasons that they believe, not the scientific. They just at least try to use the scientific and the empiric to post hoc justify their theological beliefs.
Yeah,
and if I could bounce, go.
Oh, real quick, sorry, Amy. To expand on that, I would say the one thing that I did as a believer wasn't to. My tendency as a believer wasn't to create a post hoc justification based on the science that I was hearing about. It was to put a pin in the science and say, basically, like, okay, this is what the science says happened. This is how life adapts. This is how speciation occurs. Was to put a pin in it and go, okay, eventually science is getting to God.
Mm-hmm.
That was the thing and I knew other believers that would do the same thing. Like, we'll just wait. We're getting there. Science is just going to show more and more that God's responsible for all this.
The science that they should really be worried about, and they're not, is neuroscience.
Yes.
Because if we were to actually add up all that we know about neuroscience right now, you realize that mind is not possible without brain and body.
Yep. This idea that we don't fully understand which we don't fully understand the nature of consciousness, but in terms of the debate about, is consciousness really physical? Is there something more there that's beyond the physical realm? That question has been answered. We know consciousness arises from the brain. That's just established at this point.
And we're going to push there.
That was an interesting phenomenon. Go ahead, sorry.
No, I feel bad. I feel like this is more me than it is anyone specifically.
There might be a delay, so I think I'm over talking to somebody. So yeah, never mind. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I just wanted to bounce off both two things. What Speed was saying, I think once we have like a artificial consciousness and we know it really well, I think it's going to be a gigantic blow to the theists, because that is like a third of their arguments I hear is mind, consciousness, mind, brain, mind. It's like, okay, you're just throwing those words out. You don't know what they mean, and
as soon as we have a machine where we are totally ethically compromised about shutting it off, and we realize this thing is so human-like and so conscious that we can't possibly think of hurting it, then what are we all going to do?
I just wanted to say really quickly, I'm gonna take off, guys. I got some stuff I got to do. Much love. Yep, much love to everybody. Be well.
Nice.
Oh no!
Take care.
What I want to mention was, like, there is an interesting phenomenon in neuroscience called the blind side. It's basically like you have like one individual who is on his left, like when he sees something, and in the right side of his visual field, he is blind. He cannot see, but he can see in another way. Like when you put something in an object in front of him, he knows that the object is moving in the right side of his field, but he cannot tell what it is. He's not conscious of it, but he's still aware of it in some other way.
Yes, blindsight. There's anyway, okay, when the eye comes into the brain, okay, it splits up. A lot of it goes to the lateral geniculate nuclei in the thalamus, right? And that part goes off into the primary visual temporal lobe, or visual occipital lobe, primary V1. Now that area is what we are typically conscious of when we're seeing things, okay? And then it feeds forward again. It goes into the temporal lobe. You identify objects, you add things to them, whatever. But it also splits off and it goes into the I think it's the pulvinar. That has a huge, it has 8 visual maps. It splits off. It goes to something called the superior colliculus, and that also has a visual map. And those are the things that still allow the person with blind sight to step around things, because those are more integrated into the system that allows you to walk without thinking about walking, right? That sort of thing. So they have this tendency, but I mean, it's all, it's because we have so many, there's 14 visual maps in the brain that all have to do with vision. And then there's another interesting split. There's 2 neurons that split off that go down into the brainstem that tell you what time of the day it is, that collect nothing but light. So there's all these splits. And so blind sight has been pretty well studied. But when it first came out, it was used by people that dualists that wanted to say the mind is not the brain. It was used by them to say, oh, this person still somehow sees, even though his visual cortex is cut off. Yep. But that's not the case. There's a lot of reasons why these people are able to do this. But it's interesting. They're blind. They can't see anything. Yet when you put them in a hallway, they'll step around things, and it's cool, So anyway.
The argument is that we all have blind sight, but we aren't aware of our blind sight because we are aware of what we do see. But when you have a specific part of your brain cut off, that cuts off your consciousness of what you see, then the blind sight becomes apparent. You probably have experienced some time when you have noticed something in the corner of your eye. And you don't know what it is, but it startled you, right? Maybe you saw something moving in the corner of your eye, and even though you wasn't conscious of what it was, it still startled you in some way. So it's it bypasses your consciousness of it. It's really weird when you think about it like that. So seeing is not seeing in the sense that you might think what seeing means.
The thing is, though, that there is some level, in my theory, there is some level of consciousness still there. It's just that it's not the kind of consciousness that you can extensionally talk about because you're not used to it. So when you're seeing something, that primary visual cortex feeds into the temporal lobe, which is where you come up with object recognition. And that becomes dominant in your consciousness. But at the same time, all of these other maps, they are still part of that overall qualia. And that's why qualia is such a rich, that's why we richly feel that we are connected to the world, because there are so many systems. But unless you can extend it, and that means attach a word to it, or focus on it, or attend to it, we don't normally consider it part of what we were conscious of. Yeah. But someday I'm.
There's also this other person who is completely blind. He cannot see anything. Not even any awareness of unconsciousness, awareness of things he doesn't see. But he can still see colors because he has synesthesia. From hearing sounds, he can see colors.
Yeah, colors.
And he calls it Martian colors because he cannot really describe the colors in any other way that he would normally be familiar with. It's really weird.
That's interesting. Yeah, synesthesia has always been something that's fascinated me. But yeah, I hadn't really ever considered that dimension of it. That's cool.
Yeah, and then there's also that particular instance also has some implications to the answer to the how's it called again, the thought experiment of having a woman in a room without any color red, and then suddenly the person Yeah, Mary's room. Yeah, exactly. This specific example of a blind person seeing colors via synesthesia has some implications to the philosophy of that problem. Yeah, Amy's room.
Have you ever seen a map of the visual system? This is a. I'm trying to grab a simpler one, but anyway.
I put a link in the chat about a part of a documentary called "The Phantoms in the Brain," and it talks about many of these examples. Also, the example that you are about to give, like there's one person who has his arm cut off. He has a phantom arm. He is still aware of the arm that he no longer has. Like his personal image of the map of his body in the brain is still intact, even though he has no physical arm anymore.
Yeah, V.S. Ramachandran has done some wonderful things with that. If you love that sort of thing, and he rolls his R's wonderfully, so you should listen to him. So.
Exactly.
Who's that?
V.S. Ramachandran. I call him the Rama.
The Rama.
Yeah, as in the Dalai Lama.
If you see my comment in the chat, and I put a link in of a documentary, and V.S. Ramachandran is the person who is leading the documentary and talking to patients. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, cool. Okay. You put it in private chat, or you put it in chat?
Public chat. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. I don't have to do it then.
And that's like democratizes his information.
Yeah. Public availability. Yeah. It's I really love his presentations. Like it's so weird to think about how weird consciousness behaves. Like for example, with split brain patients, for example, they don't have the same consciousness anymore. Like one can be atheist and one can be a God.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, they had one case where one side was an atheist and one side wasn't. And then there was this other woman who would be like, she'd be taking eggs out of the carton and trying to crack them, and the other one would be throwing egg, and then the other hand would be throwing eggs on the floor, and another guy that was trying to button his shirt, and the other hand was unbuttoning it. Like they fight with each other. It's really cool. Split brain. It's awesome.
Yeah. I want this. Oh no, I want. No, I don't want this. I want this. No, I want. They can disagree with each other. Like And it begs the question, like if you are like right now you have two halves of one brain connected, are they now also separate, or are they now one consciousness?
I just want to point out, Amy is engaging with someone named Alex in the live chat now.
Who the hell is Alex?
I don't know, but he seems very trolly.
Yeah, he said Smokey was his master or something.
Yeah. That's because I asked him that. He's a Smokey fan, and I was keep my eye on him, but I don't. The people in chat are going at him, so I was gonna boot him, but
it's impossible for time to be eternal.
Yeah,
you need time to even make sense of what eternal is, though.
Yeah, this is a map of your visual system. It's a little complicated.
A little.
Oh,
yeah.
I was talking about a different visual map of your brain. Like it's also a weird thing with the phantom limb patients, where you scratch them in a specific part of their face. They also feel it on their phantom arm that they no longer have. So it's like the visual map on the brain. Like I can maybe put up a figure where it's more clearer. Let's see here.
Yeah, there's some really interesting things about somatic mapping, or the mapping of your body onto your brain, and I think the lips and the penis are real close together. No shit.
That makes sense though. Well, hang on. Maybe I just revealed something about myself. Like it makes sense to me.
Anyway, moving on. So yeah, this
those areas of the body kind of have like similar like cravings, and they just kind of crump up.
Yeah, we know more about the visual system than any other part of the brain. We just have, oh my God, I've got books that are just, I wish I could had the time or the lifetimes to penetrate these books, but it's pretty incredible.
I don't know if you noticed it, Speed, but there was a There was an article I saw. I didn't get to read all of it. I got a snapshot of it in a news feed, but it was that using some kind of genetic or stem cell therapy, they were able to restore partial sight in a patient. Some researchers. I don't know if this was out of the UK. After the application of, I don't know how long it took and how many therapy sessions it took, but they don't have perfect vision, but they're able to. They went from basically being totally blind to being able to see kind of muddy shapes.
Yeah.
And so they're continuing to work on that and refine it. I thought that was pretty cool. I'm like, well, I think that would be crazy if we end up developing a cure for blindness before we have a cure for cancer.
Yeah.
If someone had asked me when I was a kid which one would come first, I would have been like, oh no, we'll figure out cancer before we figure out blindness. Blindness just seems terrible. It's like, no, we might get to the point where we can correct that.
Yep. So they're talking about the delay between. And the interesting thing is when you drop something on your toe, the pain that comes from dropping something on your toe gets into your brain about I think it's like 700 milliseconds after you see it. Yet your sight waits to notice it until the pain gets there, right? So your brain does not work one-on-one with time at all. It sort of collects information in a swath that moves through time, and it mixes it all together, that sort of thing. So it's kind of interesting.
Can you screen share what I'm sharing?
Yes.
I guess that's what I was talking about. Like there's a visual, like there's a map on the brain that corresponds to your sensory on the skin. Yeah. The
genitals are not by the. In this, well, wait a minute. Are they by your toes? Because somebody, was it the lid? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I got something wrong. But anyway.
So what happens with the phantom limb, for example, if you have a limb removed in your hand, then then the neurons of your vision, like your facial area, invades the space where your hand or your arm was. So when you scratch your face, you feel the sensation on your arm, even though you no longer have an arm anymore.
Yeah.
They become cross-wired, basically, in a sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got another Danny in chat. We have Alex, who's got soccer accounts now.
Oh my God.
Yeah. He pissed off
4.
Oh, Alex. Well, at least his are less creative than Danny's, because Danny would use Finding Dory quotes and stuff, and little plays on play on words and stuff.
Yeah.
Speed is friend, not food. That was my favorite one. Like, did you ever once at any point consider eating speed? Like,
what'd you say, Amy?
My thing with just this line of questioning is that if I were to ever turn the question around, the answers are just always, oh, well, it's just so mysterious. Like, okay, we're asking, well, where did the universe come from? And their answer would be like God. And I'd be like, okay. But the evidence for that cause is what? And it's like, well, it has to be because of the thing I just said. No. Give me the evidence for the thing you just said. God is definitely eternal.
We lost Orge.
Speed, could we perhaps show the video about Blindside that I shared in the chat, or do you not want to show the video?
We can show it, but oh my God. So Alex got some deleted chats. I like to capture the chat before somebody deletes them, so you should give me warning, somebody, before you remove people or turn them up.
He pissed off Mom, so Mom.
Yep. Well, yep.
Mom
has privileges here. So, let's see. Oh, I can't find it. I'm gonna have to ask you to post it.
I put it in private chat again.
Yeah. Okay, I gotta get my headgear on.
So did I miss anything good at the beginning of the stream? I had technical difficulties, and did I miss anything good?
I had that. I decided to call this "What the Fuck Ever Friday." So,
yeah.
Let's see. Okay. So I've got that. Let me.
Red Fang timed out that account quick. I wasn't sure if that was a sock account or not. I mean, I could guess it was, but
Yep.
Who is that? Is that Will?
Oh, is it Will? It could be Alex Cox too, couldn't it?
The Raging Battle Creek Alchemist?
Although, maybe, I don't know. I don't know who it is, actually. I don't think it's not Will, for sure, no.
Okay. But clearly somebody who
banned Will.
It's clearly a Will or a Smokey fan because they're listening to them docs.
Who's Alchemist?
No. Somebody who is likely a Will and Smokey fan who listens to them docs the Raging Atheist.
Oh, I thought you meant like let's talk about Full Metal Alchemist or something.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why Alchemist is in there, but the Battle Creek thing makes me think like, okay, somebody's.
You know what's funny? Like the image I just showed about the visual or the sense, like your skin, your sensory perception on your brain mapped. That's called the homunculus.
The homunculus.
Yeah. That's called. Yeah. That's actually the technical name of like your brain image of your body. It's called the homunculus. Yeah.
What was that? Who was it that called that? It was the projection of yourself, or the image of yourself in a philosophical sense. It was. I can't remember if that was Wittgenstein or Schopenhauer. Dasein.
Oh, it came up pretty early. The homunculus. I'm not sure what the history on that is. The homunculus. Dan Dennett deals with the homunculus pretty well, I think. Should I play this? You think? We got 20 minutes left, guys.
Oh, sure, play it.
Yep. Sure.
Okay. Let's get into some gossip and stuff. No, okay.
There's no sound.
What's happening?
There's no sound. I think, right?
Okay.
I hear sound. Sorry. Yeah.
Down, not aware.
Remember, he's blind from the right side. He cannot see.
Nothing on the blue side of the screen. He's not even aware of anything happening there at all.
Not sure if that one. I think it moved to the right.
Yet miraculously, he guesses the direction of movement correctly.
If there's one thing that this phenomenon of blind sight teaches us, it is that vision is not entirely seeing, that there can be a disconnection from the capacity to respond to visual information and the actual act of being visually aware of something.
Like I came across an interesting article which I still have to read, but apparently a man was able to have half partially his eyesight partially restored, but by taking genes from algae. I can get the article if you want. Let me.
Okay, go find it while we roll this. Okay.
Those two things can be separated and probably are in our everyday lives. But the problem is that obviously we're not aware of the things that we're not aware of. We just don't know the extent to which they play a part.
Yep.
It's almost as if the patient is using ESP. He can see and yet cannot see. So it's a paradox. It's almost like
there's the Rama.
How is this possible?
Yeah.
If you look at the anatomy, you can begin to explain this curious syndrome. It turns out from the eyeball to the higher centers in the brain where you interpret the visual image, there's not just one pathway. There are two separate pathways which subserve different aspects of vision.
Dorsal and ventral.
One of these pathways is the evolutionarily new pathway, the more sophisticated pathway, if you like, that goes from the eyeball through the thalamus to the visual cortex of the brain. Now, you need the visual cortex for consciously seeing something. The other pathway, which is older evolutionarily, and is more prominent in animals like rodents, lower mammals, birds, and reptiles, goes to the brain stem, the stalk on which the brain sits.
Doesn't he roll his R's just wonderfully?
Yeah. I don't know what that accent is, but that's wonderful. I can listen to this guy talk all the
India,
time.
I think. Yeah.
I found the article.
Okay, link them.
I did in the private chat.
Oh, which way this is going?
By the way, this video further goes to confirm my view that the human mind is vast beyond anything we'll ever figure it out. Like what I mean, what I mean is that our brains are able to do things that we don't even think are possible right now. I don't know.
Oh my God.
What, Speed?
You're on thin ice, my friend. Okay.
Well, you can say I'm on thin ice, but there's a reason why I have a view of the mind, the brain that I do.
You do.
Why are you saying he's on thin ice? I'm curious.
Oh, because he doesn't look like Scarlett Johansson, and he's sort of like trending toward that movie that she was in. And the only reason I watched that movie is because
hold on.
Scarlett Johansson looks like Scarlett Johansson.
Speed.
But he doesn't. So you can't fucking give me this 10% of the brain.
Okay. Hold on. I need to read because I am not saying that we only use 10% of our brains. That's that should be obvious to anyone. What I'm saying is that we don't use our brains to its fullest potential. There's a difference.
Okay.
Friend. You know what? I don't know if that's entirely true. And I think, and I'm not saying this just to like pick a fight, but it's sort of like, I don't know if anybody has like ever been around people that are like really into like organic produce.
Yeah.
There was this notion that if you ate anything other than organic produce, and this was early on, I was homeschooled by kind of Christian hippies, so there was an overlap of different movements, and one of them was like the raw earth, organic food movement kind of thing. And the idea was that if you ate organic fruits and vegetables that you ate that were grown in a quote unquote conventional sense, lacked vitamins and minerals. But the ones that they had a diminished amount. But then organic ones had optimal levels of those vitamins and minerals. It wasn't until I was in my late teen years that I read things like, no, in order to get a plant to fruit, it actually needs a relatively narrow range of necessary nutrients before it can actually produce fruit, and that fruit's going to contain more or less the same amount of nutrients across the board, right? The only thing that's really going to change that is the type of fruit that you're eating or whatever. And to me, that kind of informed my takes on like the and I'm not saying that this is what you're doing, Tanya, because I know you're not arguing for that. But I remember seeing the trailers for Lucy before it premiered, and as soon as I heard Morgan Freeman talking about we only use 10% of our brain, I'm like, oh my God, my eyes rolled into my head so hard I almost passed out. I'm like, that shit. Like, this has been discounted over and over and over. It's like, well, if we could only tap into the potential, and what we have is a glowing form of Southeast Asian meth crack that this girl snaps into her brain, and she turns into fucking Apocalypse from the Marvel universe. Like, okay, all right.
Well, look. I know. You said I'm not saying that, but I personally love that movie. I just hate the neuroscience, like Speed. But I enjoyed it. Okay, fuck you. I enjoyed it.
I kind of enjoy. I gotta admit, I kind of enjoy the movie too because I have seen it. It's fucking insane as hell. But I kind of expect that from Luc Besson. But yeah, the initial take on it is like, no, this is not.
So Jefferson, my son Dustin, brought me to the movie, and the whole time I was sitting there, and he kept looking over at me because he thought I was going to rage quit. But I stuck with it because of the special effects and Scarlett Johansson, and I endured that motherfucker.
She's pretty good in it. The special effects are great.
Speed. Sometimes you just gotta enjoy something and forget about the science for a bit.
Oh my God! I was watching. I think it was The Flash, and it was like season 1 or something, and I quit it because of the science. Because and it wasn't. My sons are like, Jesus Christ, you accept that Superman flies, but then when they start talking about quantum effects, you rage quit, and it's like, when they try, when they start trying to pretend like they're actually talking about fucking science and they aren't, then I rage quit. But I mean, like, I can accept the special comic book effects and all that bullshit.
If the Flash isn't impenetrable, right? Like if he's not as durable or as strong as Superman, how can he achieve those speeds?
I know the fucking air would rip him apart.
Speedster characters in any of this. That's kind of why I like the boys. The boys' take on it is that you provide this drug or whatever, and it gives them their superpowers. Everybody kind of has the same enhanced powers.
Yeah,
they're all kind. Everything is kind of elevated, and then you get these weird offshoots of different abilities, but they all have enhanced strength, enhanced speed, that kind of thing. The idea that you just like, no, this person is actually really, really vulnerable, but they can move super fast. It's like, well, if I'm as vulnerable as a normal person and I can run at almost past the speed of sound, as soon as I hit a wasp, it passes through my chest and I'm dead.
Hold on. Hold on. I want to know, speaking of the CW, I want to know how many. I want to know how the fuck can Oliver Stone survive that many times when he's just a normal human.
He can't.
Like that man has been through so many fake out deaths. It's one of the reasons why I stopped watching. Like, oh come on,
you mean Oliver Queen?
What?
You mean Oliver Queen?
Yes, sorry, Oliver Queen.
He would be in more physical pain than Christ on the cross.
So Jefferson, speaking of the boys, the finale on season 2, the writer wanted to put that on season 1, but he wasn't quite in bed enough yet with Amazon Prime apparently, so he had to defer it till season 2. But by season 2, he could do anything he wanted. So
from what I understand, like he's basically been given a blank check for season 3.
Yes. Oh okay, yeah. Oh my God.
I need to watch The Boys. A couple of weeks ago, I watched Invincible. Like I love that.
I like it. Boy, did that get fucking dark in the last 2 episodes.
Dude,
Jesus.
No, hold on. It was dark throughout the entire show. Come on.
Well, yeah, but it took like a dark deep dive.
Yeah. There were comedic effect moments or whatever, but it was just dark.
I like the fact that it takes like the Superman physics and turns them into something where it's like to the point where like, okay, this being with this power punches another being of more or less equal power so hard that person's body upon reaction becomes a weapon of mass destruction.
Yeah.
Like just from physics. And that's not a spoiler, folks. If you want to watch the cartoon, watch it. I had some complaints with it. I think the story's got some issues, but especially towards the end of it, like the implications of it was just like, holy shit, this is pretty well thought out. I thought some of
the implication of the story are probably intentional. You know what I mean? Like,
but I mean, it's kind of similar. Like if anybody's ever watched Brightburn, it's kind of like Brightburn kind of has a similar take on superheroes.
Brightburn was fucking freaky.
That was a creepy fucking movie.
That scared the shit out of me.
Wait, hold on. Brightburn? I need to.
Yeah.
Oh wait, hold on. Isn't that Will Smith?
It's like an evil Superman movie.
Bright.
Yeah, evil Superboy.
Yeah, you're thinking of
Little
the one with Will Smith is called Bright, and that's where like a fantasy universe actually exists in modern times. Like we coexist in modern times with orcs and elves and fairies and that kind of thing. That's on Netflix. You can watch that on Netflix. Not a great movie. It has some interesting aspects to it, but it's like its presentation and everything direction is really stupid. But no, Brightburn is from. I can't remember the guy that directed it, but it's I think it's James Gunn's brother and his cousin wrote the screenplay for it. And it's basically Superman if Superman, the kid, turned out to be from an alien planet that didn't have anything really good in mind for Earth. It's creepy.
Okay. So Nestle bailed on us. So.
Well, yeah, but Invincible.
Nestle.
But
we're gonna return to this video maybe on Monday.
Why not tomorrow?
Because I don't do weather reports. I'm gonna do something this weekend because I'm compelled. I'm compelled to do something new.
Are you doing FASBO?
God. Snata.
God damn it, sorry, Snata.
The last 2 weeks that I've done it turned into a fucking shitstorm. One was because of Amy Newman's channel, and the other one was what the fuck? It was the knock came in raging, and holy shit, and it's like, and I just don't know if I'm going to do Sonata this weekend because I'm all
came in raging to one of your weekend shows.
Yeah, he was pretty pissed because I had Tom on, so.
Yeah, but Tom. Look, Tom just goes over there to talk. He doesn't endorse them. Like, you know what I mean? Knock was also pissed off at the Richard Manson or Madison, whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? Just for simply being in there. Like, Richard just likes to talk. You know what I mean?
I just wanted to admit it wasn't just going on Amy's show that night where I got into a shitstorm, but it was like the whole Sonata just seemed like off. And it was partially, I forget if it was me and Immutable getting into a little. I think Immutable was like being not funny.
Yeah, he was a dick.
I want to mention that I timed Immutable out 3 or 4 days ago, and I haven't heard from him since. And it was just a joke, Immutable. I mean, I was timing other people out, and then you called me an idiot, and so I timed you out. It was 5 fucking minutes. You could have waited. But I have not heard from him since he sort of disappeared. So,
by the way, like I said, I posted the link, in the private chat, about the man who gained partial sight through genes from algae.
It's in the description. It's in the description along with this video about the Rama. I just call him the Rama.
Don't you want to look at it?
It was CBS News or something, right? We should look at the papers. But I don't know, man, blind. It was like CBS News, and there's all kinds of fucking ads and weird shit going on.
I was going to ask, Amy, are you going to be doing a show tonight?
Probably not tonight, but tomorrow I think we're going to be doing a show on John C. Sanford because he has been
Can I come?
Can I come? Absolutely.
Okay.
I think he's where all of these little I don't want to say quasi-geneticists. People like Sal follow him, and Sal's a good, he's a good guy. He's come on my stream before, but there's just a whole bunch of creationists. Really? See, there's just a whole bunch of creationists that get their information from this guy, and I don't feel like he's very well known to atheists. I know sounds like Speed knows him very well, but I want to kind of shine a light on him because I think he's where a lot of the problem comes from.
And if you listen,
do you think that John C. Sanford is sort of like the one-stop shop for like creationists?
He's where genetic entropy comes from.
Okay,
that concept.
Let me tell you this story about. Okay, you look at James Tour. He was in one field of science. He had a bunch of patents. He got a lot of money. He retired to the YouTube into creationism, right? You look at John C. Sanford, and he created this gene gun back in like 1980 or something, patented it, made all kinds of money, retired, and got into creationism. And if you listen to some of his interviews where he starts talking about God, he sounds just like James Tour.
I got to say, that comment, this is totally off topic, that comment that you've got highlighted from Brainbug, that is hilarious.
By the way, you said
I forgot I still had it up.
What do you mean a gene gun? Like to insert genes?
Oh, what the fuck? I don't know. I don't even know what the fuck a gene gun is anymore. But it was some really brilliant technology, and he did a bunch of papers. So he made a reputation for himself, in the field. And he's a geneticist trained in like 1970s, right, or 1960s, 70s. And he made money, and then he basically started with this God shit and slowly crossed over, and they came up with this crazy idea, genetic entropy, which nobody subscribes to.
It seems close to like a vaccine drug or administer where you can kind of attack by level of genes. And it is another example of someone he's like really close to the field, but he's not actually an evolution or abiogenesis, but he does have degrees in genetics, and He does have doctor in his name, so just like Speed was saying, it sounds like James Tour. This is another guy on the list of the hundreds that signed their name when they're trying to get creationism taught in school and stuff.
Yep. So we have the gene gun here. So a ballistic particle delivery system is a device used to deliver exogenous DNA or transgenes, RNA or protein into cells. And this is the picture they always show. I'm pretty sure here he is, John C. Sanford down here, highlighted, and Ed Wolf and somebody else. Anyway, he got a patent on that, and I guess he made enough money that he didn't give a shit if his career went into the toilet over religion. That's basically what they do, you know.
I mean, he made money. Who gives a shit, right? Like he made money with his gene gun, which sounds awesome, by the way. A gene gun.
Yeah, and I'm kind of in the same position myself, being a little bit older. You got some money, I can, invest in YouTube for about 3-4 years. I'm not rich like those guys. I wish I was, but I don't give a shit if my name is out there or anything anymore. I just don't give a shit. But yeah, so I mean, you can't really judge them for that. They're doing what they believe and what they love. After basically they don't give a shit about their career anymore. So,
but Jefferson, are you gonna be around after the stream?
Around?
Well, I'm thinking about going live with a quick take on. There's a couple of Darth videos, short ones that Tom Rabbit had highlighted today. I'm thinking about kind of going over it because they had some things. Actually, there was one that was really good. It wasn't Darth, but it was one of Darth's acolytes. It was Jay Robin. And he was in a conversation with a bunch of different people, but mostly with Tom Rabbit.
He was here one day.
Yeah, he came.
Jay Robin.
Yeah.
He's. I mean, he's particularly weaponized at this point. He's been good and radicalized. There's a part where he's asked a question during this exchange where somebody asks him something about Revelation, and he acknowledged that's what he claims that he's got his knowledge from Revelation. And this person's so by Revelation, you mean the Bible? And he comes back with this response, and this isn't verbatim, but it's as accurate as I can get. Well, the Bible contains Revelation.
Oh,
and when he said that, I was like, nope. I don't know what church you go to. I don't know what theology that you've looked into, but the Bible does not contain Revelation. The Bible is specifically special revelation. It's no different than having been taught to by God. It's the same as having an angel appear to you and give you directions from God, or having God beam those thoughts directly into your head. The Bible is special revelation. General revelation is just the creation around you. Yeah. Special revelation is different. This guy said the Bible contains revelation, which means that there's some revelation in it, but the entirety of it isn't all revelation. I'm like, that is not theologically kosher for the majority of Christians. And by the majority, I mean probably about 95% of Christians would not go with that in terms of talking about special. 100% of the Christian denominations that are going to ascribe to an idea of special revelation and general revelation. What this guy said was just obviously not true. So as soon as I heard that, I was like, I don't know that guy's actually a Christian, or at least not from a Christian church. This person might be like a Reddit Christian.
Yeah. I saw your video, Jefferson, on Dr. Josh's interaction, which happened, last night, right? Or yesterday? Yeah.
Yeah, I probably got into the Jay Robin thing on that. I had quite a bit to drink, so I was rambling. So.
Yeah, we as a matter of fact, we were talking about that yesterday on the weather report, and it was Drace and Jason were kind of having a long back and forth, and I actually pointed out the same thing, was the fact how Darth is always talking about knowledge and then beliefs, and he's doing that bait and switch, and I kind of brought that up yesterday. We were talking about that.
I have
same thing. So
and I have a video call saved that I kind of wanted to go over. It was called I probably would do this tonight if I was going to do anything. I think it's from a YouTube user called Cool Dog Philosophy. It's like 6 days old. And he picked this clip, and I think it's him talking to Darth Dawkins on one of the Discord servers. And it's only about 5 or 6 minutes long, the exchange. Darth goes on this gish gallop where he basically lays out the theological foundation for absolutely everything that he believes. It's really kind of interesting, and he's eating while he's doing it. So I'm going to have to do like a PSA at the beginning, like, hey, anybody who suffers from misophonia, this guy's talking while chewing around, talking while he's like,
what the hell is misophonia?
Misophonia is when you get enraged by hearing like certain sounds. Specific, most notably, it's usually like hearing the sound of someone chew.
Oh.
Yeah, you've heard me basically almost go into a rage on you. Midnight. You understand what it is.
I mean, fair enough.
Misophonia is anger created by by discordant sounds, but one of the most common triggers for it is the sound of other people chewing.
So
my son has it for drinking or pouring water. If you pour water around my son, he almost goes fucking crazy. It's just like
my mom has it if you draw metal utensils across your teeth. She can hear it from 3 rooms away, and she will fly into a rage. She will come into that room and slap the utensil out of your hand and then slap you in the face. Like, she just hates that sound. So if you close your teeth and draw food across a fork, she can hear that noise. And for her, it's just now. For me, it's 2 pieces of styrofoam being pulled across each other. That squeak. Oh.
Yeah.
So what you're saying?
That is a bitch, yes.
So what you're saying is that you're busy after this stream.
Well, I mean, when I go live, but if you want to talk between then, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
Okay, guys, we got a shooter in the head today.
Shooter.
Poor Bessie.
Yeah, it's for her now. Yeah.
Amy, I think that should be the way that they actually, instead of saying shooter in the head, I'm like, okay, poor Bessie time. Like, put the cow down.
Jesus, now look who we got in chat.
Put this thing down.
Look at who we got. Okay. Who's this in chat now?
Who is Jefferson and his clone Jay are advanced inquisitors sent here from the mothership to take over your minds and destroy this notion of gods. Thank you. Thank you. I mean,
Jay.
Can I get that on a t-shirt, please? Toxic?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that is precious.
What?
I love that feeling when somebody finally gets you.
Is that Ox though? Because the O and the X are capital. Is that Ox just trolling?
I want that to be real.
Jefferson, when I talk to you, your voice is so much like Jay's that I have trouble understanding that you don't know all the context of what me and Jay have talked about. So
sorry, it's one of the I tried to keep initially, like in YouTube land, I tried to keep my associations separate from him, but I couldn't.
I see that.
Yeah, we kept branching across. We'd keep comparing notes and show up on the same channel, so it was inevitable. I'm trying to get him to change his name. We're thinking about doing like a joint channel, but I'm afraid that if we do that, people just assume it's one guy awake 24 hours a day.
Right. Yeah. Okay, guys, we're gonna shoot her in the head.
Okay.
I'm gonna get my banner. Let's say I gotta do some things and. Oh, what is happening? Fuck. I hate StreamYard sometimes.
Chaz.